All right, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Brandon Campbell, and I'm a director on the business development team at Ephesoft. Over the next half hour, I'm going to cover details of Ephesoft's latest release for capture in the cloud for secure, scalable, intelligent document capture capabilities, no matter what the size of your organization or the industry that you happen to be in. So whether you're a small business looking to automate your document-centric processes, a partner, you want to figure out how to take advantage of this without the added burden of server management, or you have a global enterprise and you're aiming to take advantage of cloud capabilities to ensure business continuity, our cloud's going to be able to provide the capture tools that you need. So in general, we're finding that enterprises understand the need for automation, for digital transformation, for data intelligence, and accelerated processes, and cloud capabilities are what going to make these goals achievable. So first, I want to take a quick look at some cloud spend predictions and trends to better understand the market, and then we're going to get into some capture-specific SaaS solutions. Quick reminder, if you have any questions, please throw them into the Q&A or the chat, and I'm going to address as many possible live at the end of the session. If we don't get a chance to get to them or there are too many questions, I'll follow up by email as well. All right, so according to Flexera's 2020 State of Tech Spend report, cloud has finally surpassed on-premise software spend. Now, in a survey conducted in 2019, more than 80% of all of the respondents that participated reported that they plan to increase their SaaS, IaaS, and PaaS spend in 2020. But I'd be lying if I would say that I wasn't still hearing the occasional concern about cloud usage from security-conscious organizations for storing, for processing, or for routing documents and data. Now, companies of all sizes, they have embraced the mission-critical business tools. Think about CRM and ERP applications as applications for SaaS solutions in the cloud. We got to look at like the wild success of take Salesforce or NetSuite, respectively. So why not extend these same principles to documents and to data? Now, in that same study, Flexera found that the top IT initiatives for enterprise organizations are digital transformation, cybersecurity, and the shift to the cloud. And given this focus, and given the increased tech spend, companies will see industries like financial services that previously refrained from cloud usage start to dip their toes in the waters of the cyber sky. Now, coupled with the fact that Gartner predicts that SaaS will be the largest category of cloud computing, we're looking at a major change in the way businesses interact with technology vendors and the manner with which companies demand cloud continuity for their line of business applications. Now, it's definitely unreasonable to look at any type of trend or market analysis that has been released in the last year without taking a worldwide health crisis into consideration. And in the wake of a global pandemic, business continuity and security are definitely key concerns for companies in every single industry. So even though IDC predicted a slower growth rate down by 2.1% for cloud applications than previous predictions, it is still the largest area of anticipated spend for everything IT related. So it's crucial that companies are still looking toward adopting a cloud-first approach to operational tasks and projects if they want to remain competitive and if they want to remain profitable in wake of our current, basically of our current situation. So enterprises around the world, they still need to unlock and access their valuable information to better serve their customers. And with Transact in the Cloud, we're trying to make that goal, make that shift easier. So with the release of Ephesoft's latest service feature pack in 2020.1, we're also re-releasing Transact Cloud. So as the market drives toward the remote need for the enterprise and a cloud-first mentality, we're embracing this change with a refresh of our public cloud offering to support capture in the cloud to drive digital transformation into the future. Now, Transact Cloud, it is a global single tenant, not multi-tenant, it's a global single tenant cloud solution that transforms your physical documents into usable data by automatically identifying document types, by extracting key information and delivering them directly to any type of repository or workflow. It is hosted in AWS or Amazon Web Services, and it provides secure, scalable, intelligent data capabilities to organizations that need to automate their document processing without the added burden or expense of server management. So some quick facts, Transact Cloud customers can go live in hours. Our personal SLA is within 24 hours. compared to the days or weeks or months that are often required for on-premise deployments. And with this refresh, we've also added some data import functionality from AWS S3 buckets. We've added server performance monitoring and accelerated feature deployment for continuous product updates. Now, it's something I've seen a lot as I've been reading about the move to the cloud. A lot of companies don't consider when they're looking at the comparison between cloud subscriptions and on-premise purchases is beyond the IT overhead cost for internal or for contractor employee time to actually have to manage and support the software application. You really have to factor in, which is very difficult to calculate, the opportunity cost that's associated with the cash flow and the potential investments of a large upfront purchase versus a smaller year-over-year spend for a subscription with the cloud. And when you really look at everything, the monetary benefits weigh very heavily in favor of the cloud, which is why it's our intent here to be able to provide this hosted subscription-based capture solution with a lower total cost of ownership and capital expenditure to our clients. Now, I know forefront of everybody's mind when we talk about cloud is going to be security. So I do want to just highlight how we're working toward creating a secure environment for all of your data productivity needs. For one, as a company, we've achieved SOC 2 compliance, and we do adhere to the standards for securely handling data. Transact Cloud has been evaluated by independent third-party security and vulnerability assessment companies. And we do have automated dynamic and static code scanning tools built into the engineering pipeline. The engineering team also regularly completes security awareness training, and data is secured and encrypted both in transit and at rest. Now, I want to go just a little bit deeper. Obviously, this is a very important thing when we talk about cloud. A little bit deeper into our cloud architecture. So this is a diagram on how we are set up to ensure data security. Now, AWS has numerous global regions where they offer their services, and an availability zone, my apologies, it's basically a data center in each region, and each zone in each region has redundant and separate power. So networking and connectivity to, basically the aim is to reduce the likelihood of two zones that fail simultaneously. And at Ephesoft, we select regions with at least 3 different availability zones to ensure high availability, which means that customers are going to be allocated instances across those different zones. So for example, customer A has an instance in zone A and B so that they're not affected if one of those zones go down. For security, we also do allocate within our virtual private cloud separate customer-specific security groups. And the security group acts as a virtual firewall for your specific instance to control inbound and outbound traffic. So the security group is set to only allowing connections from the load balancer or from the jump host. And if you're familiar with security practices with jump host, continuing our own good security practices, our administrators connect via a VPN connection to a jump host, which minimizes the chances of a host attack. Now, moving on from the security baseline, I do want to talk about the new aspects of our cloud offering. So one new import feature is built for large volume document import and an easier collaboration for both cloud and on-premise users. So we looked at the climate of the cloud, and which is a silly weather pun there. And as AWS consumption is basically soaring in the market, we realized how important it was to have the native ability to ingest content with an S3 plug. So an AWS S3 bucket operates as an additional ingestion point into Ephesoft Transact, which expands beyond your traditional ingestion points like email or folder monitoring, or maybe an API call for a mid-document workflow capture process, and so on. So using the S3 import plugin, your batch class, which if you hear me say batch class, that's just how we refer to document capture projects, it can be configured to import files from an S3 bucket. So once the plugin is configured, the bucket is monitored every single minute for new files. And when new files are detected, it uploads the files to your specific batch class. Then the file is removed from the S3 bucket after processing, and the batch class and that bucket connection together, it makes for an efficient processing workflow of large files, of large volume of content if you have big bursts of information in Ephesoft Transact. Now, just a couple of notes to highlight about this new import feature. This plugin applies to batch class level configurations. So basically, it applies to a specific project. Every single one of your projects, your batch classes within Transact, might have a different ingestion point. And so as such, it should be configured, the plugin within your project should be configured for a one-to-one matchup with that S3 configuration. So if you're configuring multiple projects to use with an S3 import plugin, your S3 bucket here and your prefix must be unique for each batch class. And also, to use the S3 import plugin, you're going to need to provide your AWS key ID and your AWS key secret in the plugin configuration screen, which is what I've got showing on the slide right now. And we do recommend setting that identity and access management policy with the restricted S3 list, the restricted S3 access to list buckets, to read a specific file, and then to delete that file. Now, another new set of features for Transact 2020.1, the Service Feature Pack 2, which is available in the Ephesoft Cloud today, is the ability to be able to capture handprint data, optical marks, and perform signature detection without having to create templates or fixed forms. And it's hard to look at any type of digital transformation initiative, any type of effort which touches on content that doesn't, to some degree, deal with these specific aspects of unstructured information. So if you take a look at the panel here on the left-hand side of the screen, of the screenshot that I have here on the slide, new fields have been added to the key value rule configuration window that will allow an administrator to select what type of extraction method they'd like to use for document data capture, including handprint. And for capturing handprint data, using an ICR engine for text conversion, administrators aren't going to have to use a separate tool or user interface or define specific zonal locations on a page for handprint capture rules. So it removes the need to create templates when you're trying to pull out information from forms that have some type of handprint on them. Similarly, checkbox detection or OMR for form features like radio buttons or toggles can be configured using the same key value approach to capture the data. So this is going to save administrators time and effort when creating a batch class designed to capture this visual data from a document. Now, this key value configuration mechanism really comes in handy when you're defining variables for extraction like signatures. So when you're working with highly unstructured documents like contracts, for example, the ability to perform signature detection without having to specify a specific region on a page, simply to look for a signature field, it's going to provide flexibility and scalability to any capture project, which again, the whole concept of flexibility and scalability when we're talking about digital transformation, when we're talking about cloud initiatives, is incredibly important. And our goal at Ephesoft is to continue to support that market initiative as a whole. Now, I wanted to take a quick look at a popular use case for SaaS document data processing in the cloud. The mortgage industry, for example, it presents countless ideal use cases for capture in the cloud. Unlike processes, let's take it like invoice processing or mailroom workflows, which present a fairly steady stream of physical and paper documents that need to be ingested, categorized, and indexed. Mortgage documents are often received or processed in bursts at very high volume, and turnaround time is crucial. And we're going to increasingly see the need for remote or distributed account opening and loan closure processes. I mean, again, we can't ignore the impact the pandemic is going to have on every single industry and how companies interact with their clients moving forward into the future. Now, for me personally, just in the last several weeks, I bought a new house, I sold my old house, and I can say from personal experience that financial institutions are absolutely scrambling to keep up with the changing pandemic guidelines, to support people who require remote closing, and in general, just to work with a huge volume of content at a pace that's acceptable to their clients. And so cloud-based capture solutions are ideal for this type of use case, for this specific problem. And at Ephesoft, we have really great experience working with customers in this particular niche of the financial services industry. So now what I'm going to do is I want to show the S3 import plugin being added to a batch class in Transact, and then show the process of Transact actually grabbing some documents from a bucket in S3. All right, so what we're going to do is looking at the Transact Thin client, which is basically just the web-based user interface for configuring projects. We're going to open up the System Configuration tab. And what we have to do is basically just upload the S3 import as an import plugin that can be added within workflow management. So this can be downloaded from the partner portal. So we're going to go ahead and just simply drag and drop it and upload it into the application as something that is a tool that can be used and configured. So this is really the first step, just making sure that it is available for you to be able to configure in the first place. It's something that only has to be done once. It only has to be done in a single instance, and this is only if you're not currently on a version that already has it as a part of the application. So a version prior to the latest service pack. So again, going to workflow management, just double checking that we've got it uploaded here. Moving down, here we go. So what we'll have to do once it's uploaded is actually modify our individual batch classes so that we can add it to a particular project. So going back over to that left-hand side of the screen, that pop-up menu, and opening up the batch class management screen. What this is going to do is it's just going to give me a list of the projects that we have configured. So we're going to open up our mortgage processing project. And what we need to do is we need to actually add the import module that we've just downloaded. So basically we're saying for this specific project, when we need to start at the point of the workflow where we're importing the content, we want to use the S3 import plugin. So we'll move it over and apply and deploy this particular workflow. Now, like I mentioned before, this particular use case, as is the case with all projects within Transact, is very unique to what this project needs are. So I might be using the S3 import plugin for my mortgage batch class, but it might be using a totally different method of capture for my human resources department. Maybe I'm just monitoring incoming emails for onboarding. So again, configuring it for each batch class, just depending on what your workflow needs are. So moving into the management console, what I want to do is I want to make sure I'm grabbing the bucket name as well as the actual prefix name. The information, again, is unique to this particular use case. And then I'm going to upload that. I'm going to copy and paste here. And then I'm going to just apply that to this particular configuration window. I'll have to enter my key ID and the key secret as well. And something that we talked about, or that I mentioned briefly from a security perspective, is that we can deploy in region-specific areas. So when I get down to the AWS region where I'm going to select specifically where this is pulling from, we can deploy in whatever region is specific to your particular client. I know many countries have data-specific requirements where data cannot leave that particular country for privacy purposes, for data regulations, and so we'll just want to make sure we're adhering to that. Now again, making sure we get the prefix name correct. The prefix name in this bucket is mortgage, so we'll throw that in there, and that's the specific area that we're going to be monitoring. We can leave these two to default, and then we will basically just apply. Now, once it's been applied, what we've done is we've modified this workflow to say, all right, so this is how this particular project is going to pull in information. And like I said, that's monitored every single minute in that bucket now, and anytime new information is added, it's grabbed and pulled in to start the workflow. So what we'll do now is we'll actually just upload a sample file to that S3 bucket, that mortgage bucket, and we'll take a look at it getting pulled into Transact as well. So we'll go there, we're in the appropriate place, we're in the mortgage bucket, and we'll basically just upload a file. So we've got some sample mortgage documents that we'll grab in here. And the intent here is to watch the monitoring and validate that once we've actually made those changes, now it's going to get pulled in and we can see it being processed in Transact. So upload time just contingent on the bandwidth of your particular environment, wherever you're accessing the internet from. So we've got it here. What's going to happen is as we refresh it, that's going to disappear. So in Transact, the screen that we're in right now is called the Batch Instance Management screen. And basically what this is, it's just an area of the application of the user interface that's going to display all of the pending documents or jobs that are being processed or are processing in flight. So as an administrator, it's going to give me a really good snapshot to show what's being processed. So let's refresh this management console really quickly and see if the file's been pulled. All right, so we see that the file disappeared, which means that Transact grabbed it. So we're going to refresh here. And I can see here that now the job has appeared, that batch has appeared as a new status. Now on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen of this batch class that's being processed, oh, yeah, more double checking here. So yeah, this has disappeared. So on the bottom right-hand corner of the batch instance management screen, what you see here is basically just a snapshot of the application-specific workflow. So you can see the modules that particular document or that particular batch of documents are going to be working through. So at this point, it's making its way through what we call the folder import module, which is just how we refer to the ingestion module for how content is being captured, which means it's being pulled in from that S3 bucket. And if we keep refreshing the page, we can see the document or that batch of documents making its way through that workflow. At which point we're pausing here in review, which means that an end user has the ability to go ahead and check out that document. We set confidence thresholds for categorization or classification purposes if it has to be broken up before it can move on to the next step of the workflow. So really quick overview of what it looks like to actually add that plugin and what it looks like live to pull in content from AWS and see it being processed in Transact. So I've got just a couple of moments left. I want to get to some Q&A before we've got to sign off on this. So if you have any additional questions, please throw them into the Q&A or the chat, and I can answer some of the questions we've got queued so far. So first question, what are our data purging policies? It looks like that was asked a little bit earlier in the session. So we do not, as an application, Transact does not store data long-term. So you don't have to necessarily worry about information being stored long-term because we're not storing those documents or that data for long-term purposes. The intent is that as soon as information is extracted, all of the details about that batch class are exported based on how the project's been configured. So we don't, hold on to any specific data there. Another question, is this a new service or do you have hosting experience for customers already? So yeah, this is, we've previously hosted for clients. We actually have a very large handful of clients that are using the Ephesoft cloud. Previously, we did use a combination of Azure and AWS, but with this new release, we've moved to AWS completely, and we've added some, like I mentioned, additional security features, monitoring, new import plugins, that kind of thing. I've got another question. Do we support BYOK? So BYOK is bring your own key. It's like bringing your own encryption key. And for BYOK, it's something that we're currently reviewing. We've recognized that there have been some requests for it. And so it's something that we're in the, the research stage of the engineering pipeline. So it is on our roadmap, but I can't give a specific date because we're still doing a little bit of analysis on that. I've got another question here. Is this multi-tenant versus single tenant? Can I elaborate? Yes, so this is single tenant instance of Transact. So you do have your own instance. It is not a multi-tenant environment. So single tenant in AWS in whatever particular region you're looking to deploy in. One other thing, will a copy of the video be provided? Yep, we'll be sending out a recording of this about 2 hours after the session is over. So I think that, oh, maybe one more question here. Why the move to AWS entirely? So moving to AWS is just a response to market request, a response to, I guess, how our engineering team is developing on a single platform to ensure not only smooth development, but to ensure a more efficient development. So we're not doing a multi-platform development when we're looking at the cloud. And then one more question, do we have a document or web page describing the technical characteristics of the AWS instance? So the database memory assign, absolutely. So yeah, to the gentleman who asked that question, I can do a follow-up and send you a link to our documentation that covers all of that. All right, so I think we're just about at time. Thank you all so much for joining. Again, a copy of the recording will be sent out in about 2 days. And if you have any additional questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me directly as well. I'd be happy to respond directly or put you in touch with someone on my team who might be able to answer a little bit better. So thank you again for joining, and everyone have a great afternoon.